What happens when an experienced journalist confronts one of the most controversial figures in the modern royal landscape? You're about to find out, because what aired on CNN this morning was nothing short of explosive. Before we dive into this remarkable exchange, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. What do you believe really happened here? Under the glare of the studio lights, Anderson Cooper sat opposite Meghan Markle. The tension was already thick before a single question had been asked. This wasn't going to be an easygoing celebrity interview, and everyone in the room knew it. Cooper, known for his sharp questions and refusal to let subjects evade the tough topics, came fully prepared. "Meghan, let's start with what everyone's been thinking," Cooper said, his voice calm but commanding the tone that's earned him a reputation as one of journalism's most respected figures. "You've made some serious allegations against the royal family, raised lack of support during your mental health struggles, but many people wonder, if things were truly that bad, why wait until after you left to speak out?" The question lingered in the air like a challenge. Meghan shifted slightly, her polished, media smile fading for a brief moment. Clearly this wasn't the gentle introduction she had anticipated. "Anderson, I think that's an unfair portrayal of what happened," she responded, her tone sharpening. "When you're part of an institution like the royal family, there are rules. There are established ways things are handled. I tried to operate within those boundaries." Cooper remained unconvinced, and his face showed it. "But Meghan," he pressed, "you had access to some of the world's most influential individuals. You married into arguably the most well-known family on the planet. Are you really saying that with all that power and all those connections, there was no way to resolve these matters privately? You're oversimplifying a very complicated reality," Meghan shot back, her calm beginning to slip. "It's easy to judge from the outside, when you've never lived in that world, when you haven't had to manage the impossible expectations and constant scrutiny." The veteran journalist leaned in, sensing a shift. "I'm not judging, Meghan. I'm asking valid questions that the public deserves answers to. You've created a strong brand, a very successful one, based on your experience as a victim of that institution, yet critics argue that you've benefited enormously from your royal ties, while simultaneously criticizing the very system that gave you that platform." The remark hit hard. Meghan's eyes flashed with anger. Her carefully constructed image cracked, just for a moment. "That's completely absurd, Anderson. We didn't want to leave. We were pushed out for telling the truth, for refusing to stay silent. That's where I get confused," Cooper continued, his tone still neutral but the questions now more direct. "You say you were silenced, yet you have a major Netflix deal, you've done multiple high-profile interviews, you host a podcast, and you're writing books. That doesn't look like silence. That looks like a very profitable speaking tour." The studio went completely quiet. Even the camera crew seemed frozen as the exchange intensified. Meghan's media training was facing its greatest challenge, yet signs of strain were beginning to show. "We had to support ourselves," she said, her voice rising slightly. "We lost financial backing. We had security threats. We had a child to protect. What were we supposed to do, just disappear?" Cooper's response came swiftly, almost surgically. "But Meghan, it's not like you were broke when you left. You had a successful acting career, your own personal wealth, and Harry inherited millions. It's hard to believe you were ever truly financially vulnerable." The question struck a nerve, directly targeting one of the most questioned aspects of Meghan and Harry's story. Many had long viewed their claims of financial hardship as inconsistent with their privileged background. Now, under direct questioning, Meghan was visibly struggling to maintain her calm. "Money isn't everything, Anderson," she replied, though her voice lacked its usual strength. "Safety, peace of mind, and the ability to tell your own story, those things matter, too." "Of course," Cooper nodded thoughtfully. "But let's talk about telling your story, because that's really what this is all about, isn't it? You've been strategic in how your story is shared, selective about the media platforms you engage with, selective about the questions you answer. But journalism isn't about controlling your own narrative. It's about uncovering the truth." The challenge had been laid down. This wasn't going to be another soft interview where Meghan could rely on her familiar talking points. Cooper had made it clear he wanted real answers, not rehearsed sound bites. Meghan's reply showed just how unready she was for that level of pressure. "I don't think you understand the situation we were in," she said, her tone starting to sound defensive, something that would only make her come across as less sympathetic to the audience. "We were constantly under attack. Our privacy was violated. Lies were being printed about us." "But Meghan," Cooper interjected smoothly, "not all the press coverage was negative, was it? In fact, a number of media outlets were highly supportive, especially at the beginning. The idea of a biracial American actress bringing diversity and modernization to the monarchy was widely applauded. The criticism only increased after particular actions and choices. Can you at least acknowledge that?" It was a sharp tech Meghan to admit she hadn't always been treated unfairly by the media. In the early phase of her relationship with Harry, the press had mostly portrayed her in a positive light. with many seeing her as the breath of fresh air the monarchy needed. Meghan paused before answering, and the hesitation spoke volumes. There may have been some positive coverage early on, she said at last, somewhat reluctantly. But that shifted quickly once certain people inside the institution saw us as a threat. Cooper jumped on that opening. Who exactly saw you as a threat? Meghan, can you name anyone specifically? Because these are very serious allegations against people who, because of royal protocol, aren't able to defend themselves in public. The question went straight to the core of the issue. For years, Meghan had made vague claims about unnamed royals protected by the fact that they couldn't respond due to tradition. But now, Cooper was asking for names, evidence not implications. As his demand for specifics lingered in the air, the color seemed to drain from Meghan's face. This was clearly the moment she'd hoped to avoid, the point where general accusations needed to turn into real, detailed claims with consequences. I can't just throw people under the bus like that, Anderson, she said, stumbling over her words. Her usual fluency was gone. These are my family members, people I still care about despite everything. Cooper's eyebrow lifted ever so slightly, a subtle expression of disbelief. But Meghan, haven't you already thrown them under the bus? You've made these statements publicly. You've harmed their reputations. You've accused them of racism. The only difference is, you've done it without actually naming names, which frankly, makes it worse. His words landed with force. The studio, the audience, the crew, everyone could feel the momentum shifting. This had moved far beyond tough questions. It had become a full-on dismantling of Meghan's carefully crafted image as a victim. That's not fair, Meghan protested, her voice cracking. We never called anyone racist. We said there were concerns about our child's skin color. That's completely different. Cooper leaned back calmly, maintaining his professional demeanor, while Meghan visibly struggled to hold hers. Is it, though, he asked? Because when you told Oprah Winfrey that members of the royal family had concerns about how dark your child's skin might be, what did you think people were going to conclude? You can't make an accusation like that and then fall back on semantics when challenged. Bringing up the Oprah interview was a calculated move. That appearance had been on friendly ground, a platform where Meghan could speak freely without fear of being pressed. Now, she was being made to defend those same statements under real journalistic pressure. We were sharing our truth, our experience, Meghan replied, returning to one of her most used lines. We never meant for it to be interpreted as calling anyone racist. Your truth, Cooper echoed, letting the phrase sit heavily between them. Meghan, journalism isn't about personal versions of truth. It's about the truth, period. Either someone made racist remarks about your child, or they didn't. Either you were denied mental health support or you weren't. Either you were treated differently because of your race or you weren't. You can't have it both ways. The methodical breakdown was striking to watch. Cooper didn't raise his voice or act hostile, but he was quietly and effectively dismantling every part of Meghan's public story. Meghan made one last attempt to regain control. You're twisting my words, Anderson. The situation was much more nuanced than what you're making it out to be. Nuanced. Cooper paused, almost tasting the word. Nuance. That's interesting, he said, because nuance depends on context, doesn't it? So let's provide some context. He continued, you say you were denied mental health support, yet the royal household confirmed they offered you access to their counseling services. You say you were mistreated, but you were given a multi-million-dollar wedding, multiple residences, a full staff, and entry into one of the world's most prestigious families. So, where exactly was the mistreatment? Each point struck like a blow. Meghan's media training hadn't equipped her for this kind of detailed, fact-driven interrogation. She was accustomed to sympathetic interviewers who accepted her version of events, unchallenged. The counseling they offered wasn't real support, she said, her voice rising with urgency. It was just damage control, an effort to contain the situation, not to help me. Cooper's reply came quickly and sharply. But how do you know that, Meghan? Did you even try their services? Did you give them a chance to help? Or had you already decided anything they offered wouldn't be good enough simply because it came from them? His question revealed a critical flaw in her story. She had turned down help when it was offered, and then later claimed it was never provided. The contradiction began to erode the foundation of her entire narrative. It wasn't that simple, she insisted, but even she seemed to realize how unconvincing that sounded. Actually, it kind of is. Cooper replied evenly. You either went through the proper channels or you didn't. You either gave the institution a chance to support you or you didn't. From where I'm sitting, it looks like you made demands, and when those weren't met exactly how you wanted, you concluded the entire system was against you. Cooper, now more prosecutor than interviewer, had clearly taken control of the exchange. Meghan's composure was breaking down, her public persona visibly faltering under the weight of accountability. You don't understand what it's like, she said, her frustration breaking through. You don't understand the pressure, the scrutiny, the impossible expectations. What came next was perhaps the most brutal moment of the interview. Meghan, Cooper said calmly, I've been a journalist for more than 30 years. I've covered wars, natural disasters, political crises, celebrity breakdowns. I've been threatened, attacked, criticized, scrutinized by some of the most powerful people on earth, but I don't expect sympathy for doing the job I signed up for. The comparison was devastating because it rang undeniably true. Cooper had faced genuine risk and high-stakes pressure while Meghan was speaking about the hardships of a life steeped in wealth and fame. That's not the same, Meghan protested, but her words felt hollow. Is it not? Cooper pressed. You chose to marry into the royal family. You knew what that entailed. You knew there'd be media attention, protocols, expectations. You made that decision as an adult and now you're asking to be treated like a victim because the choice came with responsibilities you didn't want to meet. His words lingered like a final judgment. Cooper had just said out loud what many had thought but few dared express so plainly. Meghan had made adult choice, and was now demanding sympathy for their predictable consequences. Her next response showed just how far she had unraveled from her typical poise. This is exactly the kind of treatment that pushed us away, she snapped. This hostile questioning, this refusal to hear our side, this constant need to prove ourselves. Cooper's smile was faint but clear. Meghan, this isn't hostile, this is journalism. This is what happens when you make public accusations. You're expected to back them up with facts, not just emotions. And if you can't handle straightforward, follow-up questions about your own claims, maybe you shouldn't be making those claims at all. At that point, the tone of the entire interview had completely shifted. What began as Meghan's attempt to control her story had turned into a masterclass in how real journalism holds the powerful accountable. Cooper wasn't simply asking questions, he was exposing the danger of a celebrity culture that embraces victimhood without demanding scrutiny. I think we're done here, Meghan said, beginning to remove her microphone. Actually, we're not, Cooper replied calmly. You agreed to a full interview, and that's what we're doing. You don't get to make explosive public allegations and then walk away when asked to back them up. The dynamic in the room had flipped entirely. Meghan, who had entered expecting to deliver rehearsed lines to a cooperative audience, now found herself stuck in her seat opposite a journalist who refused to let her leave without accountability. Can't force me to stay, Meghan said, but she had already sunk back into the chair, clearly aware that walking out would only worsen how she'd be perceived. You're right, I can't force you. Cooper responded in that same infuriatingly composed tone, but if you leave now, after making serious claims and building your public image on them, what does that say? That you can make accusations, but not face questions about them. The trap was perfectly constructed. Whether she stayed or left, Meghan was cornered and Cooper had led her there with calculated precision. Fine, she said through clenched teeth. What else do you want to know? Cooper's smile turned sharp. Let's talk about Harry. You've portrayed yourself as the victim here, but what about his role? He was born into this family. He understood the expectations. He knew what royal duty meant. Did it ever occur to you that maybe the issue wasn't the institution, but the fact that you convinced him to walk away from everything he was raised to believe in? It was a brilliant move, striking at the core of Meghan's entire narrative. Rather than a supportive wife helping her husband find peace, Cooper was suggesting she had been the disruptive force who pulled him from his family and responsibilities. That's absolutely outrageous, Meghan said, flustered. Harry made his own decisions. I never made him do anything, didn't you? Cooper pressed. You gave him an ultimatum, didn't you? Either he chooses you and your version of how things should work, or he loses you. That's not love, that's manipulation. The accusation lingered heavily in the air. Cooper was doing what no other interviewer had dared, challenging her image as the innocent victim and suggesting she had been the one responsible for the royal family's fracture. I never gave him an ultimatum, Meghan insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. Really? Cooper leaned in, sensing weakness. Because from the outside, it looks like you moved to Canada, took your son, and forced Harry to choose between his family, his duty, or following you. That sounds like an ultimatum to me. Meghan's face flushed with anger. We left together. It was a mutual decision. Was it? Cooper asked. He wasn't relenting, because Harry spent his entire life serving the crown. He was a decorated military officer. He founded the Invictus Games. The British public loved him. And then he meets you, and suddenly, he's ready to give all of that up. Either you're the most persuasive person alive, or he felt like he didn't have a choice. Cooper's dismantling of Meghan's story was nearing its peak. He wasn't just questioning her account anymore, he was proposing an entirely different version, where she wasn't the victim, but the cause of the damage. You don't know what you're talking about, Meghan snapped. Meghan spoke, but even she seemed to recognize how defensive she sounded. Don't I? Cooper replied, his voice sharpening. Let me tell you what I see, Meghan. I see someone who married into the most famous family in the world, enjoyed every privilege that came with that title, and then when she couldn't bend centuries of tradition to her liking chose to burn it all down and profit from the ashes. The studio fell silent. Cooper had just delivered a devastating character blow, calm, precise, and impossible to dismiss as mere opinion. Meghan's response revealed how thoroughly she had lost control. "How dare you?" she whispered, her voice trembling with fury. "How dare you sit there and judge me when you don't know anything about what we went through?" "I know what you've told the world," Cooper replied evenly, "and I know your story doesn't add up. I know you've made serious allegations without providing evidence. I know you've profited greatly by attacking people who can't publicly defend themselves. And I know that when pressed for facts, you default to emotion, positioning yourself as the victim." Each line landed with crushing weight. Cooper was dismantling every pillar of Meghan's carefully built narrative. And she had no defense. "This interview is over," Meghan snapped, standing abruptly and ripping off her microphone, so forcefully that it emitted a harsh squeal of feedback. But Cooper didn't flinch. He delivered one last, cutting blow. "Running away again, Meghan. Just like you ran from your family, your friends, your acting career, your royal duties, your responsibilities. Running seems to be your answer to everything." Meghan froze, her back still to the camera. For a moment, it looked as if she might turn back. But instead, she simply walked off the set, her heels echoing loudly in the stunned silence. Cooper turned to the camera, his expression serious yet calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you just witnessed is what happens when celebrity narratives meet real journalism. When emotions are challenged by facts, this is why we don't take public figures at their word. This is why follow-up questions matter. This is why journalism matters." He paused, letting the words land before continuing. "Meghan Markle came here expecting yet another platform to tell her story without pushback. Instead, she got what anyone making public accusations should face: scrutiny, accountability, and the expectation to provide evidence." The camera slowly zoomed in as Cooper delivered his closing. "The royal family, bound by tradition, cannot respond to these attacks, but journalism can. Real journalism doesn't take sides, it seeks the truth. And sometimes, that truth is uncomfortable for everyone involved." He stared directly into the lens, his tone resolute. Public figures, celebrities, politicians, they all want to control their narrative. They want to speak without challenge, to tell their version of events unopposed. But that's not how truth works. That's not how democracy works. And it's certainly not how journalism works. The final shot lingered on his face as he concluded, "What happened here today should happen more often, not just to Meghan Markle, but to every public figure who expects us to accept their word without question. Because the moment we stop asking hard questions, we stop being journalists and start becoming publicists." The screen faded to black, leaving viewers with the undeniable sense that they had just witnessed something extraordinary. Cooper had done what many had long hoped for. He had held Meghan Markle accountable, and under that pressure, she had crumbled. So, what do you think? Was Anderson Cooper right to press this hard? Did Meghan deserve this level of scrutiny, or did he go too far?